DG du PNUD. I have our two technicians, people from the floor, for who I have some questions prepared for them. I will start with the DG of PNUD. Madame la directrice, je commence par vous remercier pour l'importance accordée au lancement de la 16e édition du Forum Europe Africa Investment. La première question, j'en avais prévu 3, mais je vais me limiter à 2. Selon le PNUD, quels sont aujourd'hui les plus grands défis au développement durable sur les continents africains? According to the UNDP, what are currently the biggest challenge to sustainable development in Africa?
Oui, merci beaucoup et merci pour l'invitation pour cette importante réunion et événement, la 16e réunion de cette constitution des partenaires. Je suis très heureux d'être ici et pardonnez-moi, mais je vais passer en anglais parce que mes talking points sont en anglais et je suis peut-être aussi un peu plus claire en anglais. So first of all, I want to say that the United Nations, and I'm joined here by some of my family members from UNOPS, and I see a few other colleagues, is to say that we are present in all the countries across the continent. And through the UN family, we are not just observers of the Africa's development or the Global Gateway implementation, which is very much present in our daily talk here in Brussels. We are active implementation partners, and what I want to try and offer this panel is an honest operational account of where the UN system is making those investments work and what the evidence is telling us, and where we believe that the partnership needs to go further. And I just want to say on a more personal observation, especially in these difficult times where the multilateral system is under huge pressure, and working with partners like the EU and the member states, and also with partner countries in Africa, these two continents and these two regions are absolutely critical to uphold a rules-based international order coming to the future. And so therefore, for the UN at least, and I think for our common, more prosperous future, it is absolutely essential that the EU and Africa strengthen their partnerships. So it's not just for the regions respectively and their advantages that they will draw from these partnerships, but it's also for a global and more peaceful world. So that's where I'm coming from. And in that sense, we here in Brussels, the UN family, but also in every office, I think there is this realization that the partners who actually want cooperation, who want to find joint solutions, those are the ones we really want to try and support and help coming ahead. To come to your question, Chair, is there are of course many challenges, but one of the most primary challenges is the financing gap for the Sustainable Development Goals. Even though it's not so modern anymore to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm glad to see that Jan and I are wearing the symbol. It is still the aspiration of most countries to attain some form of shape of the Sustainable Development Goals, whether we call them that or not. So we are still measuring also our efforts against that, and I think it's very important to hold on to it so that we can actually be held accountable. So first, that's point. But at the moment, the financing gap in Africa stands at over 200 billion annually. Developing countries, and including in Africa, spend now a record 1.4 trillion servicing foreign debt in 2023 alone. Those are the latest figures we have. And that means that governments are choosing between debt repayment and or investment, of course, in schools, clinics, energy infrastructure, digitalization, etc., etc. And this is the structural constraint that is the most important as we see it, and sits behind almost every other development challenge on the continent in Africa. I don't need to tell you partners from Africa that this is the problem. I'm sure you are acutely aware, but this is also our analysis, that we have to find solutions to a more equitable and also just international financing system where there is access to finance. So one of the reactions to this is to change the terms on which capital reaches Africa. Is not just to deploy more of it, but it's also to change the mechanisms over time. And here, one of the initiatives we have launched is the SDG Investor Platform, which is now active in 20 African countries, which is not enough, but we will have to work to scale it. And this is to surface bankable investment opportunity that reduces the information asymmetry and keeps private capital out of the viable markets. And how do we then get it in? In 2024, for example, $1, for every $1 of, just to give you a relative example of the co-funding from to UNDP, we promoted $500 in public and private SDG-aligned investment. So it is possible. It is possible to mobilize and leverage extra financing and private capital on the basis of ODA. And we know you spoke about ODA and how this is falling and rapidly decreasing. We've never seen overseas development assistance as the solution to the problem. This is a catalyst. This is a facilitator. This is a way, as I said exactly, is if we have $1, we can then leverage it to $500 for every $100. So this is how we should use ODA, and this is also what we, in our discussions with the European Union and also other partners, and we have had that discussion jointly many times, is that it should not be seen as a cost. This is an investment. This is an investment in Europe's own future, Europe's own security and prosperity. Because with this investment, you create more stable markets, you create more jobs, you create actually a demand to which the European economy can export to. So the transitions that we're looking at, that now the EU is trying to lift with the new initiative Global Gateway, we very much welcome. We welcome that, first of all, it will involve more stakeholders, more actors, the international financial institutions, such as the European Investment Bank, but it will also involve private sector and try to pave the way for increased investments. And so we very much support that initiative, but we're also very cognizant that it cannot stand alone. It must be accompanied with preparing the very markets for these investments, i.e. that in the partner countries there are the necessary legislative measures ready, the necessary skills available, the necessary social accompanying measures when you build, for instance, a big road or a corridor, that you accompany these bigger infrastructure projects with all these considerations that will be affected in the process of these investments. So this is where the Commission built on to the Global Gateway Initiative, the 360 approach, which is basically talking about the enabling environment and to de-risk the investment opportunities and also thereby facilitate more interest and more eagerness from European companies to invest in the continent like Africa. But of course this has to also be based on a true partnership. And here it is vital that of course this is a win-win setup where it is an equal partnership, and that also means naming the tensions in the room honestly. And here maybe the UN can also help facilitate that conversation. An economic partnership agreement that constrains Africa industrial policy space or agricultural subsidies that undercut African producers, or the carbon border adjustment mechanism and its potential impact on Africa's industrializations, have to be discussed and have to also be looked at, and how can we address those issues that they don't create an asymmetry in the relationship, and that we really create a true partnership, because Europe does need Africa. And I think there is, over the past few years, an increasing recognition, at least in our conversation, that this is really the case. It's a mutually dependency that we see coming as the rest of the world is in a radical disorder. Let me limit it to that for the moment. The EU is Africa's largest trading partner, with 355 billion euros in 24 trade flows, with a scale of partnership that comes also responsibility to ensure the terms of engagement are genuinely mutual. So we plead very much for the fact that Africa shouldn't be seen as a recipient in this partnership. It is a strategic counterpart with a natural resources that are essential to Europe's green transition, and a 1.4 billion person market, as I mentioned before, a growing innovation ecosystem, and increasing geopolitical agency. And the durability of the global gateway, we, as far as we are concerned, depends entirely on whether both sides operate from that premise. So this is really vital that the premise is this equal partnership. And the UN system is not here to manage Africa's development or the EU's investment agenda, but we are here to help both work better together with the evidence, the risk tools, the institutional access, and the on-the-ground presence to make the Global Gateway deliver what it has promised. So I think I'll leave it there, and we can discuss further. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.